god, there's so many movies.
Welcome back, Mouseketeers. This has been a nightmare to film. We've been teasing it for a while. This is literally the third time we're filming this. Third time's a charm. We've had mic issues. We've had her not remembering what movies were what. It's been fun, so hopefully this one works. I am Christina K.
Better work.
This is my twin sister, Melissa K. And I want to say it's going to be a marvelous video. I really just don't know anymore.
Marvelous. See what you did there.
We're going to be giving you our ranking of all the Marvel films. Now, keep in mind, I am a huge Marvel nut. I've been watching them since the beginning. She's a casual Marvel fan, saw some a couple years ago, but mainly just watched all of them for the first time. Only once she's watched most of these pretty recently. So we're going to have probably very different rankings here. Some might be the same, but let's get into it because we don't want this to be 300 hours long. She's only seen 22 out of the 24. She hasn't seen The Incredible Hulk or Black Widow. I'm going to give you my ranking of Black Widow, but at the end, I will give you why it is where it is. So she doesn't get spoiled. You don't if you haven't seen it. But if you haven't seen all these movies, huge spoiler alert warning right now. Yeah. Let's get into it with number 24. It's probably the only one I don't own, and that is The Incredible Hulk. It's the not so Incredible Hulk to me. She didn't see it because it didn't really tie in too much with the MCU. It was a different studio, a whole different cast. You don't have Mark Ruffalo in there, who I love. I did not like the cast. I did not like the plot even, but now they're tying it into the MCU, so you will have to see it. Let us know in the comments below where she can watch it. I've gotten it from the library before, but is there a streaming service that has it? Let us know in the comments below. Okay, number 23. We have all the movies out here. You can't see them. We're just gonna hold up what our favorites and our least favorites are here. Number 23 is Thor: The Dark World. It's just not a memorable one or really rewatchable one. It probably has the weakest villain in the MCU. It's got good moments, it's got bad moments, it's got weird moments. It doesn't seem like Natalie Portman wants to be there. It's just not one of my favorites, so it's number 23. Okay, now you can join me here with your number 22.
My number 22 is Captain America. Yeah.
The first Avenger.
Terrible, terrible, terrible movie all around for me. I think the CGI is so bad. Like, why even go that route? If you see that it's turning out to be terrible, why not just have another actor come in and replace you for the younger version, which I personally don't even think Chris Evans is the great Captain America to begin with.
We will argue about
this opinion.
Many times.
We're not going to turn this into a long rant because this is the third time we're doing this.
Or so you think.
I thought that this movie was boring. I thought they spent a lot of time on Bucky, which I get, but that also made it predictable for me in the fact that Bucky wasn't actually dead. I found the whole thing with Hydra and Red Skull very confusing. I don't think they really explained that very well for me personally. And I thought the defrost scene at the end was stupid.
The defrost scene. Oh my gosh. Well, we clearly don't agree on that one. So that is at the bottom of the pack for her. My number 22 is Iron Man 3. I think the whole terrorism thing really bothers me. The Iron Man villains are just not the best. They're probably the weakest in all of the trilogies, and you know, I just don't like them. The whole Mandarin thing, that really bothered me. I think there's good parts. I think there's not so good parts. The whole fire with the bodies thing is weird to me. Harley the Kid, that's great. It's got Robert Downey Jr., so there is some really good moments, but it's just not one that I ever want to go back and rewatch. I wish I liked it more. I don't.
All right, number 21 for me is Thor.
That's number 21 for me too.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, because it's the
third time we filmed it and I don't even remember agreeing on that.
That was natural. I did not remember.
I found this movie to be boring as well, and it's weird because I actually do like mythology things like this.
And I don't.
So for me to think it was boring is saying something. I thought there were some funny lines, like where he goes into the pet store and needs a horse, like that
and
is funny.
The mug. I need another.
Yeah. Like, that's good. I think they should have spent more time on Hawkeye a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you know that he's going to be someone...
You didn't. I did, and I had to tell you.
Right, well, like, they show him, like, on the rope, and you're just like, whatever. And then, like, it's so many movies after that he's finally referenced again that you forget. So I think they could have made that maybe a little bit bigger. One of my gripes with the Marvel movies in general is they spend a lot of time on some things and then kind of gloss over everything else. So that's one of those instances where I wish they would have spent a little bit more time on that.
She has a big problem with that. I love the characters of Darcy and Coulson in this. I wish they had more. It's a good origin story, but it's not one of my favorites or your favorites, so that's why it's number 21.
All right, number 20 is the second Thor, Thor the Dark World.
Clearly she loves Thor.
But I don't hate Thor. It just happens to be
they're weak
movies. I liked the jail that we see Loki in. I like that Loki has a bigger part in this movie. For me, Loki being the father was predictable, and I know you don't find that out right away. I know it's not till later movies, but it was predictable for me.
Okay. She has a lot of problems with predictability. My number 20 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I feel like you either love this movie or you hate it. It's just not one of my favorites. It does not live up to the hype of the first Guardians movie, and I feel like there was such a rush to get a second one because the hype of the first one was so big, and it shows. I love the characters. I just think we could have done more with certain ones and less with certain ones. You had Baby Groot in this movie, and you did not utilize it to your full potential, Marvel. He's one of the best characters, and it was just weak. The soundtrack's great. The whole father, ego, the planet thing, weird. I'm glad we know what happened with his father. I just don't really like where they went with it. There's things that they could have explained more of. More characters could have got more shining moments, but yeah, a little disappointing. Number 19, it's going to be interesting because we see very differently on our number 19. I'll let you go first.
Number 19 for me is Avengers Age of Ultron. Probably should even be lower on my list, I guess.
Interesting.
Because...
But compared to the other ones, can it really though?
I guess it can't be. So... Just a little backstory on this. My favorite character in all of the Marvel Universe was Jarvis. Absolutely was. And I thought that from the beginning, before like this was even a big thing, going back to when I first saw the original Iron Man, when it first debuted all those years ago, Jarvis was my favorite.
Yeah.
So the fact in this movie that Jarvis dies, quote unquote, don't like it. I don't like the introduction of the super twins.
Her least favorite characters are both Wanda and Vision.
So you can see where they would both be introduced in this movie. This would be a very low point for me.
Yeah.
I just don't like it at all.
I don't like it.
So yeah, we'll leave it at that.
My number 19, I don't not like. I do enjoy the film. It's just not as good as the other ones to me because it's not necessarily my cup of tea, and that is Doctor Strange. It's like rattling in here. There's a lot of elements to it that aren't, like I said, my cup of tea, but I think visually, you cannot deny how amazing it is. Visually, the cast is amazing. I do like the character of Doctor Strange better after Infinity War, but he doesn't compare to the rest of them. For me, maybe he'll get there. I just really am nervous for Doctor Strange 2, the Multiverse of Madness, which we'll talk about with your ranking, but it's just not my cup of tea, but it's not a bad movie.
Number 18 for me is Thor Ragnarok. Obviously the Thor movies rank really low for me. I just thought that this movie had a really terrible storyline of introducing the sister. Not really a huge fan of that. I thought they tried to make Thor too funny. I thought they tried to introduce a soundtrack that didn't work based upon how Guardians did.
Like Zeppelin.
And the only saving grace of this movie was the fact that Hulk was in it.
Wow. Interesting. We will disagree on that in just a bit. My number 18 is Black Widow. If you want to know why and hear my thoughts on the movie, I will tell you at the end of this video. So I will skip over 18 Black Widow and go to 17 Captain Marvel. And I feel like eventually those two might switch. I've only seen Black Widow the once in theaters, but Captain Marvel, very similar with an origin story. I actually liked the music in this, and I know like you don't always agree when like actual songs are in, but it worked. It worked. The 90s feel with Blockbuster, the references with the computer, like it was very relatable. I still don't fully understand where she's going to fit in with this because she didn't even really have a big role in Endgame, but I loved that we had Fury in this. I wish we had more Coulson. I thought maybe they could have introduced Maria in this one. I don't know. I love Goose the Cat. That's probably my favorite character in the movie, and I like that it introduced the Skrulls too, because where are they going to go with that? You know, is anybody really who they are anymore? But it's not my favorite. It's not my least favorite. We'll see if it changes in the ranking. And that's the thing with these. The more I see them, the more my ranking changes. And I'm sure you will too, because she's only seen most of these once, and some of them she confuses with each other.
My ranking has changed since the last time I made this video.
It's true.
Okay, number 17 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Wait, your ranking changed from 15 minutes ago? Oh my god, I just got that. That's amazing. That's well done.
We'll see how this plays out in the whole video. Yep. Alright, so number 17 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I found it a little bit confusing.
Weak.
I didn't like the introduction of the new characters.
You don't like Mantis?
She's okay. She's okay.
Do you like her better than Gamora? Because I know you're not the biggest
so
Gamora fan.
that leads into me saying that I don't like that it spent so much time on the sister relationship.
And I like that. As a sister, I appreciate that. And they clearly don't see eye to eye, and we clearly don't see eye to eye.
Overdone in movies. So I don't know. I think they rushed to get this out because the first one did so well. They could have done so much more. I think the humor was better in the first one than it is in this one. So yeah, not my favorite.
Okay, number 16 for me is Captain America: The First Avenger. Save the eye rolling and the gagging here. I think out of all the superheroes, this is the best origin story. I love the plot. It just wasn't executed the greatest movie-wise because of the special effects and the editing. The body in the beginning with Chris Evans, yeah, what was that? But I think Chris Evans is the perfect Captain America. I also think, like, it's just very special to me watching this movie. The first time I saw it with my grandfather, who is kind of like a Captain America, so it's special. I think the casting, everyone from Stanley Tucci to Chris Evans to Sebastian Stan, is phenomenal in this. There are definitely weak parts of this movie, but there are really strong parts too, and it references to so many movies. Like, the movies go back and they reference it, and I love it. Visually, it's not the greatest. I'm the first to admit it.
Okay, so 16 for me. This is where my ranking has changed since
plot
15
twist.
minutes ago. And I'm just trying to figure out if now all my other numbers are affected. But I said when we filmed this 15 minutes ago that I had Iron Man here and I had Captain Marvel somewhere else. And I have officially decided after doing my review that they have swapped. So Captain Marvel is now number 16 for me.
That makes more sense.
Yes, I think so too. Captain Marvel, I did like the 90s vibe of this movie. I thought that was great. I really liked that they spent some time on Fury, although I think they could have done more on Fury. And like you said, the cat stole the show, and I think it's hilarious that that is how Fury has his eye patch.
People either love that part or they hate it. We like that part.
Yeah. And I'm not really one for the humor in these movies, so that I actually did go for.
Number 15 for me is Iron Man 2. I know this one gets a lot of hate. I think it has to do with the villain. Again, the Iron Man villains are like the weakest. But I think they did a really good job of introducing characters like Black Widow. I know Fury comes in at the end of Iron Man 1, but they did a better job of introducing him here, where they're going with this with the Avengers. I think it's very funny, the scene with him in the Randy's Donut. That is amazing because we've been there and it's fantastic. There's some weird parts, but there's some very likable parts. It's not one of my favorites, but I enjoy it. Oh my gosh.
It's also my 15.
Okay.
So while my ranking changed, I think this one's still, it's not as great as the original Iron Man because let's face it, the original Iron Man has maybe one of the best lines in the entire series where he says, "I am Iron Man." So I think that is legendary. I think Iron Man 2, I like that we see more of War Machine in this.
Yeah, and we love Don Cheadle as War Machine.
I like seeing Robert Downey Jr., his humor I think is appropriate in these films. So, I mean, I like them. I don't really have anything bad to say about these movies. I just think that some of the other movies that had come out had so much more in their plot and more going on that this, unfortunately, has to fall at number 15.
I feel like with the beginning Iron Mans, they didn't exactly know where they were going, maybe, so I don't know. My number 14 is the first Iron Man film. Not because it's a bad film, there's just ones that you can't compare. They're just better, they're on a different caliber. But again, it was the original. The budget wasn't as big, the effects aren't as amazing, but Robert Downey Jr. is amazing. He just is Iron Man, and I think the partnership with him and Jon Favreau is brilliant. I don't like the terrorism part in the beginning. I mean, I feel like that stuff, when it's like a realistic villain, hits way too close to me, and I don't. You like that?
Yeah, and I'll get into that in my review.
I don't like that. It bothers me. I'd rather have like this like purple space god Thanos than that.
Definitely disagree there.
But I do like the setup of this for the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe and Robert Downey Jr. Have I said that enough? Because he's amazing. Okay, you're number 14.
My number 14 is Captain America and the Winter Soldier. For me, I thought it was predictable that the Winter Soldier was going to be Bucky. I know we very much disagree over that, but I mean, for me, that was predictable.
Which we're not going to
I really like that Falcon was in the movie a lot. I mean, the line on your left, I think that was funny. So I don't hate the movie altogether. However, I do think that this movie was actually very confusing. I think they spent a lot of time on fighting scenes and not as much time explaining why they were fighting. I think the whole thing of the computer and when they're in like the bunker and they're finding out what's actually going on, I feel like as someone in IT, that really could have used a lot more explanation.
I feel like if you paid attention more in the first Captain America, you wouldn't have as many of those questions.
I don't feel like that's a thing.
I do.
I also feel like, I forgot where I was going with this.
That's how much she loves the movie.
I just really disagree with what you said, though, because I saw it in the first Captain America. It just really didn't make a lot of sense to me. So then to have another movie piggyback off of that where you don't fully understand Hydra and everything that's going on, it just doesn't make sense to now have this computer like develop and take over everything. And part of my gripe with all the Marvels is that a lot of what goes on is so unbelievable. Like, it's just not something that I can get behind. I know action movies are like that, but I like when it's plausible. Like, oh, that could happen. Like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, let's buy in. And I get it's a whole superhero thing, so it's going to be far out in general. But I don't know. There's just something, it's just like, it's very political as well, and I don't like that.
I thought we weren't ranting.
Sorry, I'm trying to make this as short as possible.
That's the abridged version of her thoughts on that one.
Yeah, you should have seen the last 2 takes.
Number 13 for me is Spider-Man Far From Home, which I feel like coming out after Endgame, it wasn't going to be as good as the other films. Sometimes they rely too much on the humor in this. Sometimes it's great and you look forward to it, but sometimes you're like, you didn't really have to go there. I think Mysterio, not really a great villain, is kind of predictable, but I love and I don't love all the touches of Iron Man passing away, because we get it, he's dead, but I love the Edith, even dead, I'm the hero. That's brilliant. And I love how Spider-Man is conflicted, because I love the dynamic between the two of them. I love that Happy's in this one more. It's not my personal favorite, but I still think it is a good movie. I just think it's really hard coming out after Endgame, no matter what the movie was going to be. The end credit scenes were very shocking, though. That was a twist.
So number 13 for me, and this is where I changed. It was Captain Marvel, and now it's actually Iron Man. I think Iron Man stands on its own as like a movie that doesn't even need to be watched, because when it came out, this really wasn't even a thing, this whole universe. So,
you didn't know where they were going to be.
So I really like this movie. I think it's just like classic.
Yeah.
My notes are on the other page about it. Oh, and then the iconic line ending, I am Iron Man, I think is just so great and really just sets up Iron Man's personality. I just like that you get to see it. He's himself from the beginning. It's not like he evolves like Thor tends to, like where his character kind of changes with his personality.
I think he evolves.
Iron Man is always true to who he was from the beginning. Plus, come on, Jarvis.
I think he evolves. He becomes less self-centered.
Yes, but I mean his humor.
Oh,
they don't try to make him more funny as the movies go on to get rid of.
Because he was always funny. Thor was never funny.
Exactly.
Number 12 for me, I know this movie gets a lot of hate, is Avengers Age of Ultron. I just really love when they're all together. I can't really explain how much I love seeing the dynamic of all of them. I think there's really funny parts of this, like with Thor's hammer when they're trying to pick it up.
Sure, it's like the one funny scene of the movie.
There are some funny scenes. I think Hawkeye, when he's telling Wanda about, like, if you go out there, you'll be an Avenger, that whole scene, especially when he's like, none of this makes sense, I have a bow and arrow, like, he even makes fun of himself. But I also love how you see his backstory, too, with his family, because I really like the character of Hawkeye, and I like him even more after this. I don't mind Wanda. I know you don't. I did miss Jarvis, but I don't mind Vision. I hate Ultron, but we also are office people and we hate Robert California. So that's all I hear when I hear Ultron. But I think there's some really clever parts of this movie. I think there's some parts it's like, why'd you do that for? The language part in the beginning is hysterical. Like I said, I just love the dynamic with all of them together. I don't hate this movie, and it definitely set up a lot of Endgame, too. It was, you're just like, I'm not hearing this right now.
Sorry, I'm also like still really in my head that like Ultron wasn't the one with the computer, because it really just doesn't make sense to me that it's not, but
The scene from Winter Soldier?
Yeah.
Trust me, it's not.
Like,
it's not.
I really just can't get past that. Number 12 for me is Spider-Man Far From Home. Pretty much echoing off everything that you said about this movie. It's really hard after Endgame to even have a movie. I like that we see Happy a lot more in this. So that's good, but the whole Iron Man dying, they don't... I mean, I get what they're trying to do and soften the blow, but it just, for me... it's really difficult. I hated the ending of this, where it gets revealed that he's Spider-Man. I thought that they were going to do more with that after seeing the way the first movie ended with Michael Keaton being in jail and like knowing who Spider-Man is. I just thought that's how it was going to get revealed. I didn't actually think it was going to be the way that it did. I also agree, I don't like the villain in this movie.
I think the end credit scenes of both the Spider-Man movies are probably going to tie into No Way Home, which comes out in December, so... we'll see, but I want to see more of Michael Keaton. I thought he was going to pop up in this, and he did not.
Same.
Number 11 for me was one that was in my top 10, and this is the first time it's number 11, and that is Black Panther. I think this is a phenomenal movie that stands very well on its own. It ties in great with the universe, but you can also watch it as a standalone film. I think visually it's amazing. I love everything about Wakanda, the technology. Shuri is such an amazing character, and I hope we see more from her. Chadwick Boseman, absolutely amazing. He is T'Challa. I love that it incorporates other characters from like Civil War with Ross, and you have Claw for Ultron. So you have some really cool elements. The cast, phenomenal. It's a beautiful film, and there's no denying that. I've saw it multiple times in theaters, but for now it's number 11 on my list. It probably will change again though.
All right. So number 11 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy. I will be honest, the first time I watched this movie, I actually fell asleep. Yep. So I have since seen it several times since that first viewing, and I do like this movie now.
You've probably seen this one the most out of all the Marvel movies.
Yes, I think so. I think that this movie is funny. I think that Rocket is amazing. I think the scene where they're in jail and all working together to escape is great. I think Rocket needing the guy's leg is hilarious. I think that it's a little confusing though. There are so many different worlds going on, and you're like, what is going on?
Like all the planets and stuff.
Yeah, but the one thing that does get clarified in this movie is the Infinity Stones. So while it's really confusing, at least there's some clarification there as to what is actually happening across these movies. There was so much hype over this movie that I did think it was going to be better than it was. I just feel like everyone got on board because of Groot and Rocket, and it just kind of took off. The music is amazing. It's a great movie. I don't really have that many complaints about it.
Okay, so now we are in our top 10, our 10 favorite Marvel movies as of now. My number 10 is actually your number 11, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 1. I also did not finish it the first time. We were watching it on a plane. It wasn't the best time to watch it, although the first time you watched the full thing was on a plane.
Yeah.
Because she wanted to go on the Guardians ride in California. I basically agree with everything you said. I think the characters in this movie are great. Groot, Rocket. I love Star-Lord. I love the dance battle and like how it incorporates those little breaks. Like that's what I love. I think it has a really good mix of humor and heart, and the whole family dynamic of the Guardians, the whole "we are Groot." I mean, this is a great movie. Ronan, not my favorite character. It's probably why I didn't like Captain Marvel as much. But I think this is very well done. You cannot deny how amazing the soundtrack is in this. It's kind of becoming an iconic film, too. And I wonder if after the Guardians coaster comes out in Epcot, it's going to be even better, too. But yes, I really enjoy this movie. Top 10. And it's not always in my top 10, but right now it is.
Number 10 for me is Avengers.
First one.
The first Avengers. I personally thought this was extremely predictable. I thought the action in this movie was almost like fake. To the point where, like, oh, you know, a bus is rolling over and, like, everyone survives. Like,
that's what you, like, resonates with you in these movies?
I don't know. It's like, I get that all the movies are unrealistic. Sure. Like, I get that. But this one, for me, it's like, you're in New York. Like, I can't help.
Okay.
I'm in New York.
So it's,
so it's just so unbelievable. Like, just not believable at all that it just didn't do it for me. I think, like, the end credit scenes are funny.
Like, with shawarma?
Yeah. I do like that they're all together. I mean, obviously, it's in my top 10. Like, it's good. I just think that, like, part of the problem with these movies was finding the balance between the action and, like, the story. and I feel like this one, the action visually falls a little short for me.
I wonder if you went back and watched this one if you'd like it better.
Probably.
That probably would happen.
I mean, it's in my top 10 though, so
that is true.
That's good.
That's true. Number 9 for me was not in my top 10 the last time I did a ranking, and that is Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Also my number 9.
Real? Okay,
yes.
All right. It's probably the only one we'll put in the top 10. I think it's so funny. It's not as funny as the first one. It's not as good the quality as the first one. Like the character of Ghost, okay. I just like that Wasp, you get the dynamic of Ant-Man and the Wasp more with them fighting and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And like I love that they introduced Michelle Pfeiffer in this. It's still so funny, and we have more of Michael Pena, which I love. The Truth Serum, like come on. Amazing.
Yeah. I thought the humor was great, but it's just not as funny as the first one. Like
it's not.
It's a sequel and it falls a little short for me.
Yeah.
But I did think that it was a great movie.
Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of people don't like this one because there's not as much fighting. Right. But
I think
it's still amazing.
The end of this too really sets up a lot when you see that the snap has happened. Right. It ties it in.
Right.
So I can appreciate
this
that.
This is similar to Far From Home, where it came after a huge movie. It came after Infinity War. So I was sitting through the movie and I'm like, where does this tie in with the snap? And then at the end you're like, oh snap, they disappeared. Yeah. And I think it's going to set up more to come, because I think Ant-Man will have a bigger role in this next phase of Marvel movies, but yeah, it's not as good as the first one, which we'll get to in a minute.
My number 8 happens to be Iron Man 3.
I'm surprised by that.
I think that it's really cool to see the evolution of Iron Man, to see like where he goes with his suits, to see all the different iterations of them. Okay. So I like that. I also like that we see that Iron Man struggles with everything that happened after New York, so that he's still getting those flashbacks. So I like that he gets taken out of his tech tower and has to go rural and be in a garage. And obviously I love the introduction of the little kid, and then seeing how he then like, you know, pimps out his garage at the end. Like I really liked that. I liked the end battle scene, and I know I just like ranted about the battles in this, but I like the end battle scene where he's kind of flipping from suit to suit. I thought that was really cool.
That's cool, yeah.
Didn't love that Piper now.
Yeah, the fire, like, that was weird.
But yeah, I liked this.
I'm surprised you liked that better than some of the other ones, but
yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Number 8 for me is Spider-Man Homecoming. Absolutely the best Spider-Man movie out of all of them. I've seen the ones with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. This is the first time we actually had someone who's believable if they're in high school. And sometimes, you know, we're in our 30s, so when you watch stuff with people in high school, you're like, okay, that's cheesy, I don't like that. But it's actually really a good movie. I love his dynamic with Iron Man in this. I think they are such a great father and son duo. I love that Happy's in this a little bit. The casting from Tom Holland to Michael Keaton, just really, really a great movie. Even you have a little bit of Captain America in there. It's always nice. I always appreciate that. I think it's got great humor, heart. I love that it picks up right after Civil War when he's doing his little like video vlogs of it. This is a fantastic movie. This is one of the most rewatchable, in my opinion.
Okay, number 7 for me is Civil War. I liked the introduction of the new heroes in this movie. I thought that was really well done, getting Spider-Man and Ant-Man in here. Obviously, I'm Team Iron Man, so like I loved that they were all on the same team.
You can tell the teams from our ears.
Yes. Yeah. I did really like this movie, and it would have been maybe even a little higher for me. But I feel like one of the things that I struggle with in this movie is the end, when Iron Man learns that Bucky is behind his parents' death in the car crash. I personally felt like Iron Man as a character should have seen that coming and wouldn't have been as upset over it as he got. Like, I understand why he's upset. Like, I'm not saying he shouldn't have been upset.
He had a lot going on at that time in his life, too, so it probably didn't help.
I just felt like maybe that was carried on a little bit more than it should have been.
Interesting. Okay. Number 7 for me was actually in my top 5 the last time I did a ranking, and that is Thor Ragnarok. I disagree with just about everything she said about this movie. I love the Zeppelin song. I don't like the character of Hela, but I love that we have Bruce Banner. Not just like the Hulk, but Bruce Banner in this one too. I love the evolution of Thor. I love that he's funny because Chris Hemsworth is a very funny guy. I love the whole 70s retro feel in times of this movie, especially when you have like the Grand Master. I love Tessa Thompson's character in this. I love Loki because he kind of goes back and forth in this movie. I think the beginning when he's got the theater, I think there are so many funny parts of this, and I really wish you would go back and watch this one.
The humor and the action isn't balanced for me in that movie. I just have a problem, like, they're trying too hard to be funny in that movie for me.
See, and the whole, like, get help scene, like, I just think there's so much that you overlooked in this one. I really do. I love this one. Again, it was in my top 5. It's number 7 right now. It probably will always be in my top 10, but you should give it another chance.
We'll see. All right, number 6 for me is Black Panther.
I knew you were gonna love this
I really like this movie. I think visually it's amazing. I think how they set up Wakanda was fantastic. I really liked the tech in this. I thought there was a good balance of the fighting and everything. And I just thought it was a really well-rounded film. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about that.
Love it. We'll take it. For me, number 6 is Ant-Man. Everything about this film, this is probably the most rewatchable out of all the films because it does stand alone, but yet you do have elements like him and Falcon together. Just Paul Rudd. It is so funny and it's like effortlessly funny. It flows so well. I know there's not a lot of fighting in it in the Yellow Jacket, whatever, but I love the background of who he is and how he becomes Ant-Man and his friends and the way Michael Peña's character tells the stories and that there's just so much good about this movie and I love that he does it all for his daughter too. This is a really, really well done film. We are in the top 5 territory now, so these are our favorites, the best of the best. Number 5 for both of us is Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War. I saw this one first showing in the theaters and it was absolutely breathtaking on the big screen and you didn't know where it was going and then you sat there at the end and you were like, what just happened? This is such a great ensemble film. I love all the characters, especially the mixture of characters. Like now you have the Guardians interacting with Spider-Man and Iron Man. I never get bored in this film and there's always stuff that I pick up on and I forget, because it's not like one of the funnier films, but I forget the humor that's in this film. And it's not just from one character, it's from a bunch of them.
I actually can't even recall the humor that you're talking about in this film. It's obviously in my top 5 for very different reasons. I liked it. There is a lot that happens in this movie.
It's a long one.
There is so much that happens in this movie. I do like that Thor is with Guardians. So maybe that's the humor you're referring to, but I feel like that humor is warranted then because of Guardians. So we all know how I feel about Thor's comedic relief. But anyway,
I don't think he's even got the funny. I mean, he's got some, but he's not the funny guy.
For me, this movie actually could have been higher in my ranking, and the reason it isn't is because of the ending. So I know that you were saying the shock factor of the ending. It wasn't a shock for me at all because there is no way that all of those characters were dead. There wasn't any way they'd like write off a whole movie like everyone from Guardians is gone. Like there's just no way that they would do that. Also, my big thing is Doctor Strange saw all the outcomes. There's no way he would have handed over his stone if he knew everyone was gonna die and be gone forever. Like, he wouldn't have done that. Like, he knows, and I feel like that almost gets overlooked a lot because everyone's so surprised at what happens. Like, there was just way too many people that, like, disappeared for it to have even been close to being real.
Interesting. I think you think too critically with these movies, like,
I don't know. It's just,
they're movies.
Everyone, it's so overhyped that I'm like, really? That just seems so predictable to me.
That breaks my heart. All right, number 4. So we're going to disagree, I think, from here on out. You want to go first?
Sure. Number 4 for me is Spider-Man. I loved this movie. I thought this had a great balance of the comedy and the fighting. I also agree with what you said. They actually looked high school age appropriate, which was very nice. I love Iron Man in this, obviously. I love the bond that him and Spider-Man formed together. So I really liked this movie. I don't really know if I have anything else to say. I mean, obviously it's predictable. I thought it was predictable that Michael Keaton was the bad guy. I mean, come on. It was just like, well, of course it's going to be her father. Like, but I mean, I know, I don't know.
It's still her number 4, so.
I really like the movie. I would watch it again.
That's good to hear. I like that.
I really did think they were going to do more tie into the second movie from this movie.
Yeah, I did too. Number 4 for me is Captain America Civil War. This movie is fantastic. The plot, it's basically like an Avengers movie. There's that many characters in it, But I think it's a really, first of all, it's a thinker, this movie. I think the dynamic of these characters is great. I'm just saying, Team Captain America and even the people on Team Iron Man went back at the end. Like, Black Widow then goes over to Team Cap.
Whatever.
Even Iron Man does, with the whole parents' death thing. I think the airport scene, the fight scene, is so funny. There's, like, obviously they're fighting against each other, but, like, you have the, you know, when Spider-Man comes in and Falcon goes, everyone's got a gimmick. I think there's so many great moments in this film. And I agree with you with the introduction of the characters of Spider-Man and Black Panther and Ant-Man. I think the scene when Ant-Man introduces himself to Cap is amazing.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of moments you probably forgot about in this film because you were like, what's going on here? But I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think the Russo brothers, everything they touch is gold. Which you'll see this pattern in my top 5. But yeah, I love this Team Cap. Okay, number 3.
Number 3 for me is Ant-Man. I think this film is fantastic. It definitely stands alone. You could go back and watch it and not have to have seen any of the other movies. I think this movie had the perfect balance between action and comedy and just everything blended together. I really think this was a very well done movie. Yeah, I loved everything about it.
Love that. Love that.
I love, so I know I've been talking about, like, it's unrealistic and all that. Like, I get that this is, like, not realistic, but I think it's done very well in the way where you see him training with the ants. Like, I love that you see that. And then the scene at the end in the bedroom, like, when Thomas the Tank Engine becomes big.
Oh, yeah,
like,
it's fantastic.
I love it. It's so well done. It's, like, believable, even though it's unrealistic.
Sure.
Where it's not like, well, this bus ran over 12 people and they're all alive. Like,
you're really not gonna let that part go. All right, well, that brings me to my number 3, because that's when the bus doesn't kill all the people, and that is the first Avengers movie. This is the first one I saw on the big screen, and I was just so hooked. I love seeing all of them come together for the first time. There's some of the most iconic scenes in movies when they're, like, over Loki at the end, or when there's in the circle. I think it's just amazing. I do not like Loki in this film. I start to love him after. But I love the dynamic with all the characters, especially the Shakespeare in the Park scene when Iron Man meets Thor for the first time.
That is a funny line.
They're so funny. I still have some unanswered questions with this film, but I just think this holds up very well. And I will always love the first time they come together. And I hope you rewatch this one because it is better than you give it credit for.
Right.
I also love Fury and Maria Hill in this. Coulson, you know, I hate that Coulson dies, although he comes back in one of the shows, but he did it for the good of the team, and I love that like brought them together.
I forgot that they made it funny, tried to make it funny with like him wanting Captain America to sign like the trading card or something.
Yeah. See, there are really good moments of this film.
Yeah, but then he dies.
Top 2. These are the best of the best for us.
Okay, number 2 for me is Doctor Strange. And I have to be honest, this was an extremely thin line between number 2 and number 1.
Same for me.
Doctor Strange, I just loved. I actually watched it twice in one day.
I didn't force you to do that.
I just can't believe that more people aren't talking about this movie or realizing the things that are said in this movie. So for me personally, I am very into the meditation and visualization and things like that. I do practice that daily. So for me to see all of that come out and play on the big screen done by Disney, it's just like, how is nobody talking about this? Because like literally everything they were saying, I was just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, like this is like real for me. So the fact that like it's mentioned in a movie and no one has talked about it and we're just like glazed over it, I'm just like, what? Like it was so brilliant to me because it's so true for me.
But I think that's the thing. You look at these from like a practical truth standpoint and most people don't.
So I did, my one gripe with it was like a little predictable in the beginning where he's a surgeon and gonna like lose his hands, like of course. But I'm glad that that didn't last too long and that they just kind of moved on from there. I also really loved the movie visually. I thought that was fantastic, and all of the fight scenes, it's very Inception-like, but also very Magicians-like. I really do like that show, so like to see that worked in and seeing how all that plays out, like I absolutely loved it. I think this movie is fantastic.
It was number 2 on her list. It was 19 on mine, so big difference.
I really want it to be number 1, but if we're rating all of these movies as a whole and how they relate to each other, like, it has to be number 2. But I want it to be number 1.
That's the struggle I have with my 1 and 2, because you'll see a similarity here. My number 2 is Avengers Endgame. This movie is just on another level. The fan service in this movie between Cap grabbing Mjolnir, it just ties up so many things. I think the plot of them going back to the other movies is brilliant. I didn't know anybody who predicted that in all the predictions that were going on for Endgame. I think it's a great ensemble movie. Yes, you have Iron Man dying and then, you know, Cap, but the stories, even with Black Widow, there's no better ending for these characters. So you almost don't hate that their stories are over because it's just tied together so beautifully. I really don't have anything bad to say about this movie. Like, I keep thinking of all the moments in the movie, and I'm like, oh, I love that scene, and I love this, and I love that. It's a very long movie. If it was longer, I probably would still love it, because there's just so many amazing moments, and when they all come back, that is the best scene I've ever seen on the big screen. That, I know you don't like seeing these movies in the theaters, but oh my gosh, it was powerful, and it was a great conclusion, and you don't know how they're gonna, like, keep going from here, because it was a really good ending.
Happens to be my number 1, again, because of how it ties all the movies together, finally.
Yeah.
Obviously, I really dislike that Iron Man dies in this movie. However, the way that he does, I think, is very fitting, and the only way to have him go out. I think them going back to all the movies was great. I think the humor and, like, the lines that are revisited in this movie are fantastic. I think
On Your Left she's talking about.
On Your Left, or and I Am Iron Man. And I mean, I think the funeral, even though the funeral was, like, devastating, it was great to see, like, all the characters, even the little boy.
Yeah.
I think that it was a really long movie, but it can end there and I would be fine. Like, the fact that, like, now everything keeps going, it's kind of like, oh, well, this was a nice tie-up to, like, everyone's story.
It was, but for a really hardcore fan, I wasn't ready to let go of everyone at once. So.
I mean, I think that it was great that they didn't just, like, have Iron Man die and, like, that was it. Like, I think Black Widow, like, ending was good, and I thought, like, Captain America, like, I thought his storyline played out well as well. I don't know, it's number 1 for me, because I guess it tied in everything, and...
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to see how they're going to continue, to be honest.
I mean, again, she said the fine line between 1 and 2, and that's what the issue I have here. Mine is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. This is another one I saw multiple times in the theaters because it was just so good. I was taken back by the fact that Bucky was the Winter Soldier. I gasped quite loud in the theaters. I know you don't like that it's got politics in it, but I like that it's a political thriller. It's different than a lot of the other ones. I adore Chris Evans in this film, and I like him partnering more with, like, Fury, and I love that we get to see Emily Van Camp's character, why can't I think of her name? Agent 13. I love that we get to see her in this film, too, and I love the introduction of Falcon. I really don't have bad things to say about this film. I don't agree with the bad things she has to say about this film. The elevator scene, one of the best, and I'm so glad they revisited that in Endgame. But again, these two are, like, so close for me. This one's just been out longer, I think, and that's probably why it's a little bit higher.
You're also, like,
in my
really
book.
high on Captain America.
I am.
So.
I am. That was another thing I loved about Endgame, was the whole America's ass thing. Thank you, Paul Rudd, for that.
I also just, like, thinking about it, I don't know if I could go back and rewatch Endgame, like, over and over and over. Like, where I could with Doctor Strange. Interestingly enough.
Well, I can rewatch both of these, but I obviously have rewatched Winter Soldier more than Endgame. I have to be in the right, like, mindset to watch Infinity War and Endgame. Because they are emotional, like, they are draining. Look at Randy. He's like, this has been a very draining video for him. So, with all that said, we would love to know your ranking. Did you agree with us or disagree on certain things? Because clearly we do. So let us know in the comments below. Let us know where you can watch The Incredible Hulk. I know there's going to be questions about our ears and your shirt.
My shirt, my Chihuahua Avenger shirt.
The Chihuahua Avenger shirt.
And I got my little Chihuahua Avenger. Oh, he's made this into a dress.
It's like a toga. Aw, monkey.
This is my little Chihuahua Avenger right here. This is Randy.
He's been sleeping the whole time, so if you hear snoring.
He has been sleeping. But you can see I bashed the Thor movies, but obviously I'm not, like, that upset about Thor.
Can they see it?
because
You're Nikki now.
he was even supporting Thor today, so yeah.
Hi, baby. Thank you. What are you doing?
Oh,
Okay, that's comfortable for you? So we will link all the shops for the ears, her shirt, and her shop because she makes a bunch of really cool Disney and pop culture stuff, even some Marvel. See, it was worth watching all these Marvel movies. I'll link that in the description box below. We'll love to chat with you in the comments below. Randy's totally over this. We're gonna wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching us. Third time was a charm.
I'm Melissa K.
And I'm Christina K.
Have a Disney day.
Okay, I had to move the setup because we were leaning back on the couch because we've been doing this for hours, so our backs were killing us. So it's not the most flattering thing, but I had to come up here now to give you why Black Widow is number 18 on my list. First of all, it was so great to see a Marvel movie in theaters again. I wasn't expecting a lot going into this one. Black Widow isn't my favorite of all the Avengers, but she's not my least favorite. It was nice to see more of a backstory with her. I wish Hawkeye would have been incorporated in this one. I know we have like voice clip, but it would have been great to have seen them in action together. Her sister honestly stole the show. Florence Pugh did an amazing job in this. Her whole family honestly were more the stars than she was. I don't know, but I was happy to see her backstory. It was a little twisted for my liking, so I actually think my sister will probably like this one a lot more than I did. The end credit scene left me wanting more. If you haven't seen some of the Marvel shows on Disney Plus, you need to before this one. And also, I have a feeling it ties into what's to come. I try not to give spoiler alerts, but I was like, my jaw was dropped. I was like, oh. So I'm very intrigued to see where it's going. But it wasn't my least favorite movie. It wasn't my favorite. It's probably going to be switched with Captain Marvel. But again, I only saw this one once. So I do want to go back and watch certain things. I thought it was funny. There were definitely great moments of it. But there were some that I was like, eh. The sister though, oh my gosh, when she's making fun of her for how she fights, amazing.